Welcome back. So we're not just flying through targets this time, now we're flying through targets in order. That's different. Oh, we only have 4 minutes too. Yeah, now things are getting serious. Is this draft gonna hit me? No. Okay, good. Honestly, I feel like I've done enough paragliding already, but this shouldn't be too bad to make up more to finish this up. Curious how much more interesting the targets will be, because it seems like this is the more challenge-oriented mode. It's just hard to do. I'm almost surprised they have 10 stages of this. I guess it's easy to make stages for this and whatnot, but how slow going it is. Feels like it drags on a little bit, even though it is legitimately pleasant. Try not to lose too much altitude. It is weird having a game where tilting your most forwards and backwards does something, but not tilting a lot right. Curious what a legitimate attempt at doing this really fast would look like. Like, how much could you really change to do this faster? Now, you can lean forwards and whatnot, I know, but I don't feel like that makes it go very fast in reality. What? Oh, come on. Whatever. I feel like I went right through the red. Didn't use any drafts there either. Again, you have pretty decent control over your own altitude. Okay, now it's an even straighter line. Wait a minute. I guess we're moving on the vertical axis this time instead. Oh, stop that. I feel like, as a whole, these targets are approximately the same size as the targets. Oh. As the targets you encounter, as the balloons you encounter in the balloon mode. It's just that getting the center of it to get a bunch of points is a little harder. They're actually placed in, so far, easier ways. You don't even descend all that quickly. If you... You don't even descend all that quickly if you just try to aim downwards. Me trying to descend without using the buttons. That's how I ended up missing that one. Oh wow, you lose control, apparently, after you go through the last target? That's different. I don't know how much there's going to be to do in Free Flight after all this, but we'll see. Granny looks almost bored. Wait, I feel like this is approximately the same thing as the third stage in the other one, with the balloons. Like, same start and end point. This isn't yet another one of those games where it's not immediately obvious entirely what kinds of inputs I'm giving the game, so I kind of wish you could see what things I'm pressing at any given moment, or how I'm holding the remote. Not many games give you visual indications of that sort of thing. The only game I played I think that let me do something like that was... I don't remember if both Quick Replay Played games let me do that. At the very least, Marvel Saga let me do that. In that game, it was fairly obvious I was holding the remote at any given point just because that's precisely how the game world was oriented at any given moment anyways. But... I liked how in that game I could actually have, on the game HUD, something indicating how I'm holding the remote so that people don't normally see it. Now let's raise me up. You better. There you go. So hard to tell precisely where those start and end in terms of their vertical reach. Oh shoot. Alright. A little hard to perceive depth there. Yeah, you can't keep dropping. It's kind of weird. You just lose control once you go to the last target. Nice clean number. Alright, we should finish the last two of this episode at least. I look forward to something a little bit more action-y in the form of boating and whatnot though. Admittedly. You know, this is pretty and tranquil. It's a bit too much of the same thing though. Kind of the same way how I got bored of the racing games back in the city. It was just more that needed to be. Or at least if they are going to do more and more of these, I wish they would make them a bit more creative each time. Because it feels like each of these is basically the same thing. It's really better, I think, instead of trying to do a slow arc downwards the entire time, to just drop down quickly at one point and then move relatively laterally the entire time after that. But usually in games like this, in activities like this, you want to try to make your movements smooth. Not really here though. I feel like trying to smoothen my movements too much actually ends up making things worse. Like here, I'm probably gonna want to drop down. In fact, I have to. I guess another way of thinking of it is you kind of want to put yourself on the right altitude as soon as possible. As soon as you get the chance, start adjusting your altitude and then go from there. There we go, I actually finally got perfect scores on everything for once. Same bird, as always. One more. Yeah, I feel like there's a really strong correspondence between each of these stages. Hello. Each of these stages and the balloon versions. So one thing I've never been sure on, actually, is precisely what kinds of sensors the nunchuck has in it. A random thing to bring up, but not so random, because just a moment ago, I moved my left hand down to scratch my chest, and Granny started dropping. I was under the impression it was only the Wii remote that had... Well, so the nunchuck has some kind of accelerometer in it, I guess. because the nunchuck can tell when you shake it. But whenever I see motion controls involving the nunchuck, it's basically just to shake the nunchuck. Is there much more than that? Whereas the Wii Remote, games will try to actually divine the orientation of the Wii Remote from its sensor inputs. In fact, that's one of the main things that you do with a Wii Remote. I've mentioned this a few times before, but as a reminder, I did not go as high as I wanted to. Oh my god. As a reminder, the Wii Remote doesn't actually have a gyroscope in it, which surprises a lot of people. It just has an accelerometer. It's just that, so long as you're holding the remote approximately still, because of gravity you can tell using the accelerometer which way it's oriented in space. But if you want to move the remote and simultaneously know how it's oriented, then you need an actual gyroscope. And that was one of the difficulties of introducing the Wii Motion Plus into the market, because it wasn't clear to people why you would need that. The Wii Motion Plus is just a gyroscope, but people were already convinced that you could just figure out that the Wii Remote already knew its orientation at any given point in time. So people weren't really sure what the Motion Plus could possibly actually bring as a benefit. The benefit being able to actually move the remote so that the accelerometer can be used to detect movement while simultaneously. This is going to be interesting. While simultaneously. The game does not like my altitude here. While simultaneously having its actual orientation in space known. That being used for things like swords and stuff like that. I believe it was mostly motivated by wanting to have motion controls be the main form of moving a sword in Skyward Sword or something like that. I never actually saw Skyward Sword myself, so I'm not certain. The main thing I remember about Skyward Sword is that, that, and because of the fact that the game was motion controlled. That was why I think it's the only game in which Link is actually right-handed. He's usually left-handed. And we can finish the episode with some free flight. Blurry dog. But the reason I bring that up is I know fairly well what the Wii Remote is like. What kind of free flight is this? There are more balloons to hit. Well, let's see. It feels like it's basically just the same thing as usual. It feels like it's basically exactly what I just did. So I know fairly well what the remote has inside of it, but I don't know about the nunchuck. I've never been clear on what kinds of capabilities the nunchuck actually has. This game, so some games seem to indicate, some games do seem to make some use of the physical orientation of the nunchuck. I noticed that lots, for some reason, tend to really only tell you to shake it. They just pay attention to whether it's moving or not. Not what direction it's moving in or anything like that either. So I don't know if it just has a worse accelerometer in it or something like that, but sometimes people pay attention to how it's oriented. Like this game does that. Ah shoot, did I? Hold on. Oh. There we go. Again, as long as your accelerometer identifies its different directions, you can actually tell how the thing is oriented in space. That's precisely what the Wii Remote does. But if that's the case, then why does it seem rare? That might be a better way of putting it. It's not that nobody does it, but why does it seem rare for anybody to actually use the orientation of the nunchuck for anything? Not never, just not very often. I admit, some of the excitement that I had in the paragliding, or in the hang gliding minigame, might be kind of gone here, because here, there isn't really any part of the mountain you couldn't already see or do stuff with on the ground. Whereas, what was really cool about hang gliding, you know, this was more that it was making up for something that disappointed me about the city proper, was there were lots of parts of the city that you could only reach while hang gliding. Or parts that you could also find while driving around, but couldn't, of course, fly around in unless you were flying. As redundant as that sounds, it's a different perspective on something you could otherwise only drive around in. Here, though, it's not all that special in comparison, I feel like, because we've already seen all this stuff. I wonder if there's going to be a time limit here like there was back in the hang gliding minigame. That was weird to me. There was a time limit there. Whoa. That was a heck of a turn, Granny. I don't feel very acknowledged, but that was something, I guess. Granny's rocking around, jeez. The game tells you, no, you may not go down. Gravity is not your friend. You may not obey gravity. Calm down. You can see the mountain from here. Wonderful. You can go up the mountain this way too. Let's see how far we can get up the mountain, then we'll call it quits. Assuming the game doesn't just time us out first. I don't know why there was a time limit in the paragliding game. Hang gliding, darn it, the hang gliding game. I wish I could go forwards without losing a ton of altitude. Oh, yep, here we go. I don't get it, but whatever. I don't know how far out of bounds you can go or anything like that. It would be kind of cool to just go up to the top of the mountain. I don't think I'm going to make it there in 30 seconds. That's one minigame done at least. Of course, I'm kind of deliberately moving slowly, but that's because I'm trying not to lose too much altitude. I'm trying not to lose too much altitude as I do this. I don't feel like you go that much faster if you lean forwards. I don't feel faster. Oh well. Kinda weird. Okay. That happened. Alright. Okay, I'm littler and older than you are. Don't you say such things. Okay. Next time, in fact. Thank you, Chibi. Never mind.